All right, looks like we are on and ready to roll. So good evening. I am Dr. Lisa Olszewski. I am a chiropractor and a naturopath up in this great state of Michigan. I am also an independent promoter with a company called Pruvit. So I want to give you a little bit of information tonight about what ketones are, what this thing about ketosis is that everybody seems to be talking about lately. And I want to share with you my story because I was not one of those people that started out with ketones and absolutely loved them, right? I hear a lot of people that drink them at first and they're like, this is fabulous. I have such brain clarity. I've got all this stuff. And that wasn't me. So I'm going to give you my little story too. I was introduced to Pruvit back in May of last year. And so I was already doing pretty much kind of like a paleo, low carb paleo diet. You could call it ketogenic, right, at that point. And I was taking a lot of good coconut oils and doing a lot of MCT oils or medium chain triglycerides, which is something that's found in coconut oil. And so when this person sent me this video, right, this campfire video, I watched it and I was like, I don't need this. I've got the stuff in my diet. There's no reason I need to add in more ketones because I'm already doing this. But I was reading a lot of research articles because I'm like a geeky person like that I want to know exactly what happens to our body when we're in this state of ketosis. And so what happened, I kept reading these articles and I came across this man named Dominic D'Agostino. In his research articles, what I was reading, I would see MCT oils and I kept thinking, okay, this is just, we got more chiropractors on here. I'm seeing the things coming through. So I would see these MCT oils and I'm like, this is what his research articles is about. And then it was a couple of months later, like fast forward to like July, that I read an article and it clicked for me because it said MCT and ketone salts. And all of a sudden I was like, darn it, that's that company that so-and-so told me about several months ago. So I like went back into it and started utilizing it. But let's like back up a little bit because at that point I wanted ketogenic benefits. So let's talk about what exactly ketosis is, right? A ketogenic diet is when you're doing a low carb diet, moderate protein, and a lot of fat. Why would you do that? Because when you think back to like Paleolithic era or when like way before the industrial age, before we all were eating a lot of grains, this was some way that our body adapted because we would go through time periods where we would have all sorts of food where we would be feasting for days and then we go through a famine time period. So ketosis was our body's way of going in to adapt into like our starvation time periods. Because what happens if you don't have a lot of food, your body's going to start taking some of the fat that you've stored and it's going to start burning it for fuel. In that process, that's called burning ketones. It's what your body's doing. And so hence it's called ketosis. And so that's basically goes back to our body's adaptation from, millennia ago. But go figure, now in 2017, like how often do we go through starvation periods? Like hardly ever, right? So we're always in this feast time period. We're never going through famine. And so we're eating all this food and our body's like, well, guess what? If I start, if I go into a famine time period, I better pack on some extra pounds. I'm going to get some extra fat. And so we never go into a famine time period. And so our body can never really tap into that as a fuel source. And so we have two forms of fuel. It's glucose, which is sugar, and ketones. And so we can eat really strict diets, right? We can decrease our carbohydrates to like 10 grams of carbs or 20 grams of carbs and force your body to get into ketosis. And there's all sorts of benefits from it. Like that's what I love about the internet now. You can type in whatever thing you want and put in whatever condition, and ketones or ketosis. And you'll see so much research articles. Like I'm not going to make any medical claims this evening, right? This is not a medical product. This is a supplement. And so I knew from doing the research, there were a lot of great benefits to ketosis. And that's what I wanted to scope out. So for me, I started utilizing this because I just wanted it to see how it was going to affect me for long-term health, basically, right? So one of the things that you'll see on our little box as I go through this stuff is muscle preservation. And so I knew all these people were using it as athletes and I wanted to see what it was going to do for my workouts. And so one of the things that I did was CrossFit. So I was super excited to see how it was going to help me with my CrossFit workouts. And guess what happened? I hurt my low back and all of a sudden I couldn't work out. And I couldn't work out for like probably 6 weeks. I was going to say 4 weeks, but it was a long time period. I was having a lot of issues doing anything, let alone like going and working out. So fast forward the 6 weeks of me using ketones, having not seeing any changes, all of a sudden I got onto a rower at CrossFit for my first workout back. And I'm just, there's a lot of us that if you stop working out for a while, when you get back into working out, it's really bad, right? Like if you haven't ran in a while and you start to run again, it's like, why did I ever, give up running or whatever it was. So I got on this rower and I'm like, this is going to be horrible. I'm not going to be able to walk tomorrow after this workout. Like I expected a lot of the bad things that happened. And I jumped off the rower and I looked at the time and I was in shock because I had just rode, like, I don't remember if it was 500 or 1,000 meters, but it was the fastest that I had ever done it personally. And that's when I was like, what's different? Like, I don't even know what's changed. Like, I haven't worked out in 6 weeks. This is nuts. This shouldn't have happened. And then it clicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was those ketones. Those ketones actually really helped. And so I was like screaming at my trainer and he couldn't figure out what was going on. Like he thought I was still injured, but I was like, oh my gosh, it's that stuff I've been drinking. It's totally helping me with this. So what I have now noticed is like my recovery times are a lot faster after a workout, like after like you do a lot of squats and it's really difficult to walk for a couple of days, right? Hard to get to the toilet, all sorts of stuff. Like I don't experience that horribleness, right, anymore. So those are some of the things that I love. And it was that 6-week time period where all of a sudden I had that moment when I took my ketones and it was like, I have mental clarity now that I hadn't had, a little bit earlier. And that's when I started realizing that lo and behold, this had worked. So had I given up, 3 days in, or had I given up 10 days in or 3 weeks in or 4 weeks in, it wouldn't have, I never would have noticed a difference. But I decided to stick it out because of the research articles that I had come about. So that was my personal experience with it. And so I love seeing those changes. And so sometimes when people come to me 3 days in and they're like, this isn't working, I still got my 50 pounds of fat that I haven't lost. I look at them and I'm like, well, how long did it really take to put on those 50 pounds, right? So it's going to take a little bit of time if you're in that for fat loss. Because I think a lot of times people look at ketosis as a way to help burn fat. Yeah, it is. But we got to remember that stuff, like you didn't put on fat overnight. Trying to lose fat overnight isn't going to happen either. And so some of the other things that we'll see is after the age of 50, we all lose muscle mass. I've heard a stat, I think we lose like 1% a year. Like that's a lot of muscle mass that we're losing. And so we're going to see some of the benefits within this product that I'll talk to you about that's going to help to preserve muscle. And so, ketones can also pass your blood-brain barrier. And so that's why we'll start seeing such brain health benefits as well. So I'm going to go through the products because how many of you guys probably got a campfire video, right? Raise your hands. Yeah, I'm seeing some familiar faces popping on. Okay, you guys all got a campfire video, right? And then you watched this and you started trying this product. And so I'm going to explain to you what the difference is with each of these products. So the very first one is this Keto OS, which is this Orange Dream flavor. So this was one of the earliest versions. So what I'm going to show you, this is Orange Dream. There is MCT oil in this. It's a really good, healthy fat. MCT oil, it stands for medium chain triglycerides. It comes from coconut oil. But what happens, if you know anything about coconut oil, it is, was my clock really fast? I feel like I started on time, but maybe I didn't. So MCT oils, coconut oils, if you look at them, if you read about them online, a couple different things. They're antibacterial, they're antiviral, they're antifungal, which is really good, when you take that stuff because it helps to support your body. But for most Americans, people have got leaky gut issues or unhealthy guts. So for the typical person that might take this, when they pull in, first off, a bunch of fat and they're not used to it. But if you're also taking this MCT and you start to kill off some of that bad stuff, guess what happens? You might start running to the bathroom, right? So I always start people out with a half of one of these. And if they're fine with it, then they go up to the full pack. And so this was the very first version. The MCT oil, it's a powdered MCT oil. It's going to clump, and so there's a spray dusting of dairy on that. So I do let people know, like I told you, I'm a very paleo type person where I do very minimal amounts of dairy. So I do let some people know this. If you don't do dairy, just know there's a smidgen in this one. So then the second version that came out is the chocolate swirl. So this one, they took out the MCT oil or the MCT powder, and what they added in were a couple different amino acids, and then they also put inulin. And so what that is, it's a prebiotic for your gut. So it's going to help with any GI or digestive stuff. And so this is just the second version that came, I guess it's the third version actually that came out. But there's some great amino acids in there. And what's so important, people will ask me this a lot. Why does it say vegan? Well, we love the fact that this is vegan, but what I didn't realize because I know there's some people on here that probably have bodybuilding in their background, or anybody that used to, like, I know in the 90s and the early 2000s, I always took amino acids. I had no idea where certain amino acids came from, i.e. this one on the back, leucine, is a big one that they will get from human hair and duck feathers. Not this company, right? Pruvit is always going to be making sure it's got like the best quality ingredients. This is a vegan form. It's a vegetarian form. It's a fermented form of leucine. So you can guarantee that there aren't any, duck feathers in this product. But I was really shocked when I learned that about my amino acids that I had been taking for years and where they were coming from. It actually just really grossed me out. So what you're going to see in all of these is beta hydroxybutyrate. And sometimes people say, whoa, what is that? Beta hydroxybutyrate is the type of ketone. That's the ketone that your body makes. It actually makes 3 ketones, but I'm not going to get into all the science of this. But that's the beta hydroxybutyrate is the ketone that floats around in your blood and gets into every different aspect of your body. All right, we're going to keep it simple. That's what that is. That's why you see such amazing health benefits from this. Then they came out with the next version. And now we've got a lot of different flavors of this version. This is Max, right? I think this is probably, it's one of my favorite. This is the one that when I took this stuff, that's when I had the clarity, like I was talking to you about. I've been taking the other stuff and I still use this stuff. I love it. But this was when I took it, and within 20 minutes, I was like, brain fog is gone. Holy smokes, this stuff works. And so Max, just more bioavailable, right? There was an independent test that was done, and they talked to us about this in January when we were in Dallas, I believe. I get all my cities confused anymore. But so they tested this with a lot of the different ketones on the marketplace, and they tested blood levels, how much BHB is in people's blood after they take all of the different ketone products that are out there, and how long do they stay in the blood. Guess what product came out top? This one right here. So now you've got different versions of it, right? We've also got the Swiss cacao. They come in different sizes. These are all the same. It's all Max. It's just different flavors. And raspberry lemonade is the newest flavor. I was able to taste it today. That stuff is amazing. So you've got a lot of different Max products. And then the last one, and I'm afraid I don't have it in front of me. How do I not? I got freaked out when I was told I had to do the new Prover 101. I didn't grab my keto cream. The keto cream is a whole nother product, and I love it. And if you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, it's going to rock your world. Or even if you just drink hot water, it's going to be amazing. So it's a good, healthy fat. It's MCT on it. It's MCT oil, dehydrated MCT oil, with a little bit of cinnamon in it. Cinnamon's awesome for blood sugar regulation. But that's one of the herbal type things. That's why I let my peeps know, my patients know about that in the practice. But the keto cream, you can mix it in with your coffee. So if you want to get some extra fat, or if you're starting out your morning, you can throw some keto cream in there, and guess what? You're probably not going to be as hungry as fast, right? I talk a lot about intermittent fasting in my practice. We do a lot of different stuff that way. That keto cream, though, I wish I had a packet in front of me to show you. It's kind of confusing. It says ketones in every cup, and so people automatically think it's ketones. Guess what? You take that MCT in, and your body makes ketones. That's endogenous ketones. It does not have beta hydroxybutyrate in it. Your beta hydroxybutyrate is in all of these different products. That is exogenous, or external, outside ketones. That's all this stuff. But you can also, I'm going to give you my little hack that I found out about recently. If you mix a keto cream in with one of these, it is spectacular. You can mix it with cold water. It tastes amazing. With hot water, it's like hot chocolate. It is amazing. So if you would decide to do the Swiss cacao. So that's all of the products. And I think I covered it all, but I haven't even, like I said, I haven't been able to go through my notes to make sure I covered it all. So I apologize, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this recording, and then we're going to get into the new Prover 101. All right. And I feel as if I am way ahead of schedule. So I apologize if I really talk fast, but I'm going to pause this, and then we are going to start the new Prover one.